guys, welcome to the Hype Attack Podcast, where we weigh in on the latest in nerd and pop culture hype.
We're the fandom. We are the excited conversations we have with our friends about the nerdy things we all love and geek about. We are the Hype Attack.
I am the hype!
I'm what you might call the founder of the feast.
Okay.
I dig it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Hype Attack Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about video game adaptations. But before we get into that, I'm here as usual with Doug, Isaac, and Rudy. And like always...
Hi, Jermaine.
Hey.
Oh, yes. And Jermaine is here too.
Want some candy?
But
Got some candy in my front pocket. You want some?
want some candy?
Snack size.
It's a Tic Tac.
Do you guys know where that's from?
What?
Predator 2.
The want some candy? Oh, Rudy already.
Predator 2, nice.
Yeah. Those are classic movies, by the way. But anyways, how did you guys nerd out this weekend?
Doug?
I had quite the adventure this weekend in LA. Also, most of it not nerdy, but we did end up finding this really cool comic book shop.
Oh, thank God. I was going to say soliciting prostitution is illegal.
Only if you're caught.
I make them dress up as superheroes. Cost extra. No, I found a really cool comic book shop called Revenge of in LA. And it stood out to me. One, they had this really cool pinball section in the back, but also they really pushed, I think, some of the more independent stuff. Like, it wasn't DC Marvel slamming you in the face right when you walked in. It was a lot of lesser known stuff. But that was really cool. The other thing I did was I finished watching Titans, which I loved that show from the beginning when it was on DC Universe Online, DC's own app, before it got bought up by HBO
definitely not
Max.
that.
Yeah,
no,
it wasn't
I
you
know.
guys. I don't know how much you guys know about it, but
I was just about caught. I saw you posting about the very last episode, which reminded me to watch the last episode, which I haven't watched.
yeah.
Is this the last season?
Yeah,
Like the official last season?
Yeah.
And it's a shame. I really like it. The show was not the greatest. We talked about last episode. We talked about Donna Troy dying from lightning or electricity.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stupid things. There's a lot of like, all of a sudden they're in their costumes and all of a sudden they weren't. Like, there's a lot of inconsistencies and like weird stuff. Like this last season they were in an RV and somehow they got across Metropolis constantly, like in 5 minutes or whatever. Who cares? It's fun seeing the Titans characters in this kind of grown-up, mature world. I always trusted from the beginning. I always liked that from the beginning they trusted us to know it's a DC show, because it started off on the DC app. So it was like,
Yeah.
this is for DC fans. We can mention these characters without explaining who they are, whatever. And that carried through to the end.
Do you have a particular moment in the show where you're like a favorite moment?
Oh, man. I'm so horrible with like favorite moments.
I'll say, Esai Morales playing Slade Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I was like, Esai Morales? Really? Bob from La Bamba? It's not my first, nor my last. Take a shot. You'll know the scene. Anyways, he did a really good job as Slade Wilson. It was convincing. Actually, he's going to be like the big bad in the new Mission Impossible movie. And I was like, Slade Wilson versus Tom Cruise. The part where he fights Dick Grayson as the newly revised Nightwing.
Oh, that's right. He got the Nightwing suit for that fight. That
was exciting. That was really cool. I like that. That was my, because the suits looked really good.
I will also say that the guy that I should have looked up his name, Ryan Porter, I think, or something. The guy that played Beast Boy, I thought did a really good job throughout the whole season.
I like him as Beast Boy. Yeah, he kept like that jovial nature that Beast Boy, that Gar always has. Because there's some characters like Grant Gustin's Barry Allen. Like Flash is supposed to be like fun, but he's just like real somber. I'm like, you're not Batman, bitch. You're the Flash. You're supposed to be fun and jovial. What are you doing being super fucking dark and broody?
Yeah, he did a real convincing line for me.
Eyeballs to Rudy.
As Beast Boy. I'm just saying.
Ryan Potter is his name.
Okay.
I hope that's how it's pronounced. But And this last season, we finally got to see Beast Boy be Beast Boy, turning into gorillas and
Oh,
and all
dude,
that stuff.
yeah.
At first, it was like the tiger because that's probably what their budget allowed is one animal. But
It was like 2 seasons of just a tiger.
Yeah.
And it'd be this whole thing like as if he was turned into a werewolf. I liked his like they spun off Doom Patrol from his storyline, and I love the hell out of Doom Patrol.
Yeah, and this last season they touched on something from the comics. I guess I don't want to spoil it, but they touched on a big part of DC Comics. Oh, I guess I'll spoil this. DC Comics has the red and the green. They've established that red's all the animal stuff.
Okay, I
and
was
the
wondering
green-
what that was.
The green is like Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy. They're all attached to the green, and then there's also the black, which is like Decay. So they touched on the red finally, and it was cool to again that trust in the DC viewers to know like, okay, cool, we're bringing this in.
The animated Harley Quinn show touched on the green.
Oh, cool.
In the
'cause
recent
Harley
season.
Quinn,
Poison Ivy,
Ivy's in there.
yeah.
Yeah, right on. Cool. Anyway, how do you nerd?
I was catching up on the anime Attack on Titans. I used to watch a number of anime shows and I haven't, and I couldn't find the rest of the seasons of Attack on Titan. And then my niece, who's 14 years old, is like, "Oh, it's on Hulu." Like, oh, well, I should have searched it, shouldn't I have? And I was literally like watched what was it, season 3, episode 1 today before I got here. And then, as aforementioned, I finally finished another drone video. I procrastinate on like editing my drone videos because it's like over 20-30 minutes worth of footage that I go through and I get precious about it all. It turns into like a 5-minute long video that's boring even when I watch it. But I'm like, no, I had to show that part. But anyways, I won't over explain it, but check it out on @foreheadfpv. It was a video I took a year and a half ago, and I finally got around to editing it. It took me only like an hour and a half, 2 hours to do it, but it was fun to do. But most of all, I played Zelda, and we'll get into that. Rudy, how did you nerd?
I finally saw the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Which
Finally.
was really good.
No spoil. Hey,
Really
no
really
spoilers.
heartfelt.
No, hey,
It
well,
was really
relax. No
heartfelt.
spoilers. I gotta let you know. Let me talk to you off mic. No
And
spoilers,
and
Rudy.
I cried a number of times.
Oh yeah, the tears.
Yes!
The tears hit.
And motherfucker, Jermaine, you need to see this movie.
Okay.
What? Wait,
Hold
you've
up,
not seen it?
Hold up.
Oh, you dare put your
So-
finger up at me.
I was supposed to go watch it on
Put it up in me.
Saturday,
And explicit rating.
and then Saturday came,
You're cut off.
and
From Celsius, from
I never went to go watch it because I know somebody's going to be listening to this, but she took a long nap, so we didn't get to go watch the movie. But
I would have
it's
gone and
okay.
seen
It's
the
okay.
movie.
It's okay.
Shame.
Yeah, this is
My
for you. Who's
God.
going to listen to that?
And
That
you're
shame
not
goes for you.
even married.
In the words of Monica, I know. But no, go ahead, Rudy. Continue
sorry.
with your ultra
Anyway,
hyper nerd weekend.
yes.
Kind of jelly, by the way.
I've buried the lead. I went to Star Wars night at Disneyland.
Dude, I saw that. That looked fucking fun. You're adorable, by the way.
I fucking know.
Hold on. What's your Instagram handle?
Oh, it's at rogue.one.
Go there now, people.
I put it in my story. Did I put it? Did I put
Oh,
it in
man,
my
I
reel?
hope you... Fuck.
I will. I'm
We should just
sitting
put it on
a
the-
bunch
Yeah,
of
you gotta
pictures anyway.
repost some stuff.
We'll post some stuff, and I'll have Jermaine post it to the main hypertext channel
minute-
because it's too cute.
Yeah,
for,
it's super
I'll stitch
cute.
together. I'll put it together.
The minute I saw where he was, I was like, I hate you, because I wasn't there.
oh, it was super fun. Just the activities they had planned. Just everyone walking around with the lightsaber and just measuring shafts. It was amazing.
tips.
Like there was like maybe 2 like kids there, like minors. So it was all adults. So it was it was pretty fun.
Nice.
It looked... If you guys haven't checked out Rudy's Instagram, or if you don't know what he looks like, he's a big cuddly brown teddy bear. And to see this guy in his robe and swinging the lightsaber around, and his wife's recording it, was the most adorable thing. Like, I literally had my face up against my teeth going, oh, look at Rudy's adorable. I love him so much. I'll take his verbal abuse.
See, but that's the thing. We're all like grown ass kids here, so we love all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Speaking of verbal abuse, Isaac.
When I was a baby, my head was so big scientists did experiments on me. I once
You bitch, I was drinking. Hey, look, I leaned into my shit, okay? That's why my IG and TikTok handle are @forehead. Yeah, I'll lean into it, man.
Yeah, that's why I don't feel bad at all. Making fun of it.
Oh, man. Yeah, so I played Zelda, and I haven't played Zelda. As I mentioned last episode, I haven't played Zelda in a very long time, and I forgot that it's such an expansive, exploratory game, you know. And I hadn't played the one before that, and I haven't played the one before that, nor the one before that. But man, this game it's. I barely scratched the surface, and what I didn't know that it was like it's much because you have to combine things and stuff like that. But
hold on, we're talking about Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, brand new game that just dropped on the Nintendo Switch.
Yes. Tears of the Kingdom. I'm sorry. And I'm loving it so much so far, but I just realized that I just scratched the surface and there's a lot to do. And were you playing it, Doug?
I haven't played this one yet. I started playing Breath of the Wild, the last one. I love Zelda games, but this one it didn't grab me, but this one I'm very interested in this, and I'm almost, as a nerd, I feel like I'm just not a part of this huge conversation that the entire internet, or at least my portion of the internet, what the algorithm wants to show me, is talking about. And I'm just like, I haven't touched it. I haven't looked at it. I have finally started watching some of the videos. Of course, all the dicks, the flamethrower dicks.
Yes.
That's half of what you see about this game.
Flame on.
But
Flamer on.
it looks really cool from a technical aspect. The idea of being able to build so much. In a game. But it's also one of those things like part of me just wants to play as Link, using a sword and killing some things and stuff, but that's been done, so that's the thing. Like, this is something new that's going to stand out.
The developers were saying that they didn't want to just create another Zelda puzzle solving game, but they wanted to make everyone's gaming experience completely different. And from some of the things I'm seeing, it is like you can basically create a skateboard, you can create a rocket, you can all of these things, and I'm like, that's pretty exciting, that's pretty cool. Because you're right to what you just said. Like, there was a part of me that wanted to just play, an OG Zelda game where I didn't have to think about combining and cooking and all of these other things. But you're right. Like, stuff has to change and make it a more immersive experience. And I think this game is doing that so far. But I was looking at a lot of posts because you're right. The algorithm and all these other pages are putting out like posts about the game. Plosive popsing, and a lot of people in the comments. Yes, I looked at the comments. I know it's a cesspool. I shouldn't do it, but I did it anyways. And they're like, Jesus, all the dick writing about Tears of the Kingdom. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I get it. Especially right after, what was it, Star Wars Survivor just came out.
Yeah.
I feel like that should be getting more praise. But I feel like it's kind of equal in all the posts that I'm seeing.
Yeah. Well, I kind of have a theory, and I'm not trying to Nintendo bash. I love my Switch. I love Nintendo, but the Switch doesn't have a lot of like very hardcore games. So when something like Zelda comes out for it, because a lot of people just have the Switch. That's their one console they have. And so when something comes out for it like that, it's like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. We finally have it. But anyone that's been playing on like the PS5 or Steam especially, there's so many options out there. So when someone comes and says this Nintendo game is the best game ever, it's like, oh man, there's a lot of games out there that the Nintendo just doesn't get.
Bunch of filthy casuals.
No, okay.
I don't mean to sound like that, but I agree with you. Like something in my head.
I agree with you, but to get even more specific, I feel, and I don't play a lot of video games, but correct me if my opinion is wrong.
Oh, we will.
Trust. Does it seem like Nintendo has kind of not necessarily failed to, whatever. I'm not gonna try to be political here, but like, I feel like Nintendo's failed to come out with like big hardcore games. Like Zelda's always the go-to for the big hardcore game. You know what I mean? And like PlayStation and Xbox have always had, list the games where like they're the big games, the big baddies, and there's not just the one. There's the shooter over here and an exploration game over there. And take it away, Doug.
I think part of that is because Nintendo has always aimed for the cheaper console, which means it's usually more technically limiting. So your big studios like Santa Monica Studios before Sony bought them, they made God of War. Like some of these big studios would be hesitant to make a game for that console because they couldn't do what they needed. And even making games multi-platform was always a pain to port to the Nintendo because it's like, okay, we got to dumb it down for this.
Yeah.
Where where that benefits Nintendo is that they've gotten really good at making games at these lower polygon counts, at the lower processing powers. Because you look at all their systems, GameCube, Wii, and the Switch as their newer ones, the games that they put out, Nintendo themselves are so good for being technically weaker.
Yeah.
But they know how to do the art. That's why you always get like those different art styles with their systems, because they're not pushing the polygon count.
Was it the Zelda Wind Waker?
Yeah, on the GameCube, which I played a lot of, because I had to spend like 12 hours in a doctor's office once for like a study. But I was like, I'm just going to play GameCube all day, and I played that.
Did they figure out that you are in fact not human?
No, that my asthma needed medicine.
I'm on brand of being a nerd.
But yeah, exactly.
I just I felt bad about that one. I felt really nerd shamed. Shame me on that one. Self-inflicted shame.
Yeah, let's not make fun of people with respiratory problems.
Still laughing.
Perfect.
But
Combo.
one thing too
He
that
just got KO'd.
is interesting in today's video game market is not only do you have to put out a good game, you have to make a game that people are going to want to talk about. And talking about meaning Twitch and YouTube, meaning, playthroughs or play wits like on live, and stuff like all this building and stuff that is incredible on Twitch, because your creators can get there and just have fun making stuff with their audience. And that's the kind of thing that, you mentioned Jedi Survivor, which is a great game, but watching someone play that on Twitch is just watching someone playing a game. Where you can create stuff like in the Zelda game, all of a sudden your audience can be like, I don't know, let's make a dick. Let's make two dicks and make them dick touch.
We're never far from dicks.
Yeah, because I'm assuming every Twitch audience is asking their people to do, but that's what can turn a game into just like some cool release that people talk about for a month to something that is really, really successful.
I do go on TikTok lives for reasons, and I do see more people playing the recent Zelda, and I barely scratched the surface, and I don't know half the things you can do, and I'm like literally learning from them playing it. But I'm not trying to like cheat or go through any like walkthrough. I know better. I earned my nerd card.
What guys? What experience with Zelda? I mean, because there's been so many games from the very beginning. NES, Nintendo,
29 titles.
And that gold card, 29. Yeah, because they were on Game Boy, they were on DS, all of them.
Oh my god!
What was some of your favorite Zelda moments or Zelda games?
Can I rephrase that question?
Sure.
Let's start off with, what was the first Zelda game you played?
Oh, mine was for the NES, the gold cartridge.
Was that The Legend of Zelda?
Yeah, that was the
very first one.
my first introduction to Zelda.
Play old timey music.
Was that the top down one, or was that the side scrolling one?
That was the top down one. The very first one was the top down one. That's
Yeah.
that's a good question after we get through everybody's thing.
Rudy?
Because I think I played the side scrolling one first, and I was like, "What the hell is this? This is not hype. I can't get jiggy with this." And then I played the first one, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is much better." Like I never finished I think it was part 2. I forget what it was called.
Link.
Was it?
The second one was just called Link, I think. Or
Was it like
Adventures
Link to
of
the Past? Or?
No, that was SNES. Yeah. So I was going to ask, like, for you, I guess, because you played the first one first, and then I'm assuming you played Link, the second one. Like,
Oh no, I don't think I played the second one.
oh, okay, because that was for me. I loved the first one, and then it's like, oh, second one came out. Let's go buy it, and bought it, and all of a sudden it was a side scroller. It's like, what?
Yeah, that would have threw
This
me
isn't
off.
it. But I have a core memory about that second Zelda. So a lot of times in my youth, I would actually spend a lot of my time watching my brother play more, because he was, he's better at it, and so it was kind of fun just to watch someone who was good at it. And
I did
didn't
that too. My brother's actually your guys' age, and I used to watch him play video games all the time, and then
Yeah.
I'll get my turn.
So
Hi, brother. He listens.
there was one night, and I don't know if you guys remember those old NES games. There wasn't a lot of saving, or a lot of times you'd have to play all the way
Oh, God.
through, or you might have a save, but the game messes up and you lose your save or something like that. That happened to me on Final Fantasy 1. But we were at like the last dungeon or the last castle in the second Zelda game, Link, and it was scary. We're excited. It's late at night. I think my friend Danny was sleeping over, and we were upstairs playing and just getting into it, the intensity. And if you remember in the game, there was those little blobs, boop, and they would bounce.
Oh,
In the
I
last
remember those.
dungeon, you see a couple of those. It's like, okay, the blobs are here, and then you go into a room, and a giant one drops from the ceiling, and it was like 100 times bigger than the others. And I remember just being like so freaked out by it because at that point, like I said, we're late, we're kids, we're up later than what we should have been, and just to see like a huge version of a mob drop down, it was like exciting and cool, and like we just didn't want to die because we were low on lives or something like that around the last level, and it was cool. Those are good moments.
Yeah, I remember the concept of saving your game was big. Like my brother started off on the SNES, so he probably played The Legend of Zelda. Me and my first introduction to it was the N64, the Ocarina of Time.
Oh, yeah, I never played that one.
Yeah, that was the one that I played also on Nintendo 64. That was pretty good.
That was really good. And then the one after that was Majora's Mask. I never touched it.
I don't think so, but I like the boss fights in those games.
Oh man, I still like Ganon's fight in my head. It's just Ganondorf, and then that whole battle is just epic as hell. Yeah, that's still fun. I was looking at something earlier today and like just trying to reminisce of that N64 Ocarina of Time, and I was like, that's not too bad. Like the graphics weren't too bad. Like it was very cinematic and stylized.
Oh, I would still play that to this day.
They did a great job. Did they? Not that you guys would know this, but did they bring it back for the DS or anything? Because they were doing that. The DS brought some of those games back.
I think there was a DS adaptation for that game.
Yeah, or one of the newer systems I think got an adaptation for that.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to wrap my head around something you said earlier. You never played the Ocarina of Time?
No, I know.
Never?
For some reason,
Get him.
So
That's one of the. This is your
ready.
first.
no, I know. Yeah,
This is your first shame, but
trust me, I'm mad at myself for it.
Yeah, it
'cause
doesn't feel nice, Doug.
that
hurts,
That
huh?
was like stated for the longest time to be like one of the best games ever. And I think at that point, because that was in 64, right?
Yeah.
So that was GoldenEye era.
Oh yeah.
And so I rarely played single player games at that point. Like almost every day after school, my friends would come over. My brother and I shared like a big upstairs room in my parents' house. So we had like the bigger room that could fit everybody.
Well, you had an upstairs.
I know. But we would all come over and it would be GoldenEye, it'd be Mario Kart. Like we had so much fun just playing the couch multiplayer, split screen, yelling at each other. Don't look at my screen.
Oh,
Blah,
man.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
And like those old
Screen
games.
watcher.
Screen watching.
Yeah.
Screen
You didn't even
watcher.
have to screen watch because those games were so like there wasn't a lot of color, so it's just like you would just see the flash of blue on the bottom corner, be like, oh, I know where Dan's at. Like he's in this part of the map. But yeah, so I did actually miss a lot of that N64 era single player campaign games such as the Zeldas. Now GameCube is when I a little bit time had passed and we weren't getting together and playing as much. That's where I kind of got into, like I played Wind Waker and all those.
Yeah, the GameCube was technically my first console that I owned. Everything else was my brother's. Hey brother, can I play can I play Sega? Can I play? No, I'm playing it. And he was just dude, he was the gamer. Like I looked up to him, so I was like I would play all the games he would play. And then I grew up and I started like buying my own games. I'm like, this is expensive.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, that's all expensive. Let me share a little story right quick.
Story time.
with little brothers and things because I got a little brother. So it was around the time PlayStation came out and Metal Gear was out, and everybody remembers memory cards, right?
Yeah.
So
oh yeah, I know where you're going with this.
So this is when I used to work at Disney. But anyway, so I would come home and I would play Metal Gear Solid, which is a great game, by the way. Like it's
Oh yeah.
my jam. But anyways, so I had made it all the way to the final boss, and it was late night, and I had to get up early for work. So I saved my game, and I saved it right there at the boss. So I was like, I'm gonna come home tomorrow, and I'm gonna beat his ass. And I go to work, and I come home, and I load everything up, load it from my memory card checkpoint or save point, and I'm back on the ship in the beginning. And I was like, what happened? I'm like, I must have loaded the wrong file. So I get in there again. And,
Surely a simple mistake.
yeah. This can't be real.
This can't be life.
Is this real life? So I loaded up again.
Must be fantasy.
So I loaded up again.
Surely you
and
just-
there,
I'm the same guy that said, "Dost thou bleed?"
and there I am. And the beginning stage, like Snake looking at the ship, and I'm like, no.
What happened, Mr. Jermaine? What happened?
So my little brother came home and started playing my game, and he saved over my file.
So Rudy can edit this out, but where did you bury his body?
He's
Just
lucky.
me and you.
He's lucky we have the same mom. He's still alive. No.
You may be missing a finger or toe.
Oh man.
But
Damn.
that day, no
Damn.
lie, I wasn't mad. I was upset at myself. And in the words of Squints from The Sandlot,
Yeah.
I blame myself. Going at this all wrong. So I immediately left, went to GameStop or Electronic Boutique. Remember that? And I bought him his own memory card. I said, from this day forth, you save all your things on here.
My brother would have beat my ass. Are you kidding me? You're
No,
too
but-
goddamn
but it's one of those things-
sweet, Jermaine. I followed deeper and deeper in love with you.
I get it, but the flashes of like everything I had to go through again just to get to that thing, and it was when you had to fight. What was his name with the rollerblades? The one he had the bombs and he was planting them around on that little
I
hanger.
know. Wasn't it like fat something?
Was it Fat Man? or
vaguely
something?
remembering that, yeah.
Anyways, that boss was a nightmare for me particularly, and I was in there. I have to fight him
Damn.
again and go disarm all these bombs. But anyways, I finally made it back to where I was a week later.
Hey, did the Metal Gear? Okay, Snake Plissken, right?
The
Snake Plissken is the name of the movie character.
escape from
New York and Escape from
New
LA.
York,
So
yeah.
that's not any relation to
No,
this
they-
Snake
that's-
with the eye patch.
But
And the mullet?
He in the game,
And the
he
gravelly
refers to
voice
himself
going.
as Iroquois Pliskin in one scene, like his alias. So like, that's real tongue in cheek, but because Iroquois is the Iroquois name for snake,
Huh.
so Snake Plissken. It was a reference to the movie.
I got you.
In the
Okay,
game
so it's
about the movie. Like,
no relation.
okay. Because I've always thought I always thought that and I never did any further research. I was like, the internet told me. I always thought that was an adaptation of the. When did the game come? Or that the game was an adaptation of the movie. You get what I'm saying?
yeah.
Forget me.
I have a similar story to Jermaine's, though. Mine was a teensy bit more painful. Doug, you remember the Final Fantasy games for the Super Nintendo?
Oh, yeah.
They were branded 1, 2, and 3. I believe it was 2 that I was playing. And, you had I had the big joystick controller, the big square one,
Nice.
with the 800-foot long cord to the TV. And I'm playing there, and I'm like, maybe... It's like, I had to do it again. So I think I was like 25 hours into it by that point, which is, for a kid, that's a lot of time to sink into a game.
Oh yeah.
So I'm in the room playing, and all of a sudden, my younger brother comes in. I have 2 younger brothers. The older one comes running into the room, and he's doing dumb younger brother things, and I'm ignoring him. And all of a sudden, he just darts in front of me, trips over the cord, pulls the whole console, off the shelf, and the game goes tumbling. And I'm like, I'm mad. I'm like, you interrupted me, man. Get out of here. Put everything back, put the game back in. And those cartridges were so fragile back then. A good knock would just wipe all of your save data.
Hey Rudy, real quick, and Rudy's gonna edit this, but where'd you bury his body?
Oh man, like I sat there, like I'm trying to think of.
Oh,
there was
God.
a movie where some guy's sitting there and he's like getting red faced and he wants to cry. Like that's exactly how I felt. It's like,
Oh, it's funny because I have such a similar story, but I'm the bad guy.
Oh, you're the
Same thing.
goddamn younger brothers.
So yeah, I'm the younger brother. My brother was playing Final Fantasy 1, which is on the NES, the very first Nintendo, and that was even more fragile of a system. This is the one where you blow in the cartridges.
Yeah.
Everyone had their their tricks. You got to put it in just
the kids
right.
have it so easy today.
Yeah.
They pop in their disc and download from the cloud, whatever that is.
So yeah, Dave was playing Final Fantasy 1, very far into it, and this is when we were downstairs, and I jumped off
You
the
have it
bunk.
upstairs. We get it. Rub it in our face.
I jumped off the bunk bed, just screwing around, just like jump off the top of the bunk bed, land on the side, landed on the floor. It was enough to shake the console enough that it reset.
Whoa!
And so same thing, fire back up, all lost, start over.
Hey, Doug,
Like,
real quick. Rudy's gonna edit this. Where'd you bury your body?
my own
So,
body. Yeah,
so
I should have.
Explains why you're dead inside. You got that deadness behind your eyes.
the
there's
emotion,
a lot of reasons for that.
the emotion that you felt inside, I can
Scratch
paint the
on something.
picture. Do you guys remember, what was the Kurt Russell movie where he was in Big Trouble in Little China?
Yeah,
I love Big Trouble.
Do you remember when the guy, like,
turned to like a big old.
where the air was, yeah, like,
yes.
where he was
Yeah,
like, and he just kept getting mad, and then the air just escaped. Like, that was me on the inside. Like, I had the knife in my hand, but I got so big and it just dropped, and I was like, "Ah!"
And your brother's like, "You okay, Jermaine?" You're like, "Fine." And then like one single blood drop comes out of your nose. Just fine.
Oh man,
It's so fun, like to look back. I mean, not fun, I guess, but it's interesting. All those
Traumatic.
things.
Better word.
Yeah. Did you guys ever play any of the games that didn't save, but you had to write the passcode down, like Metroid?
No,
yeah, like a few of those.
Or
That's
Kid
what it
Icarus.
is.
that was the thing.
Yeah.
Kid Icarus, Metroid on
Holy
the NES, because the
shit.
cartridges, the cartridges held such little data. So some of them you couldn't save because there was no room for a
Oh,
save.
that's interesting. It
So-
would be like passcode to get to that.
Yeah, like Metroid, it'd be like, all right, stop, quit, get your passcode. But it was what, like 24 digits. It was like, but I mean, and we would have a notepad of paper and we'd be writing them all down.
Oh,
like
that's
every
crazy.
time. And every once in a while, though, you'd get to that point where it's like, what letter is that? What did I write? Because my writing's horrible. It was
man.
always horrible. And I think
Oh,
there
you
was
like
moments
chicken
where
scratch?
you'd have to go back to that last one because you just couldn't read what you wrote. And, you might have hours in between them or something like that. But
I've never played any of the side-scrolling Metroids outside of like the DS or anything like that. The first Metroid game I played was for the GameCube. It was like Metroid
the
Prime.
Prime.
Yeah,
Yeah, the 3D. I really
that
like
was like the
those.
first-person shooter. I really enjoyed it. That was pretty cool.
yeah, it's interesting looking back at some of the very first Nintendo games, and a lot of them still hold up. Metroid, I would say, still holds up. Zelda still holds up. Even the first
now-
Mario Brothers, I think, still holds up.
And now it's so crazy because you could just like download an emulator on your app and you could just start playing those games. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, if you want to, steal.
Whatever. Not that I've done it.
you wanna
There's some stuff you got to pay for.
sail the high
Whatever.
seas.
You know.
Yar.
I heard from a guy who heard from a guy that you can purchase like a miniature console or whatever, and it'll have all of that particular console's games on it.
Yeah, and I like how
That's fun.
Nintendo caught on to people doing that and actually started releasing their own little mini consoles, which I had a blast getting the mini SNES.
Just a blast from the past. I don't know how often you guys play the Sega Genesis, but do you guys remember Kid Chameleon?
Very little.
very little.
The only reason
remember the title, but-
the only reason I remember that game because I would either play Kid Chameleon or Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember Kid Chameleon because even then I couldn't like put it into words. But I look back at it now, I saw some guy on TikTok Live playing it, and I was like, "Oh, Kid Chameleon!" It was like it had physics. You know what I mean? Like there was a weight to each character when you put on a new disguise or whatever, and then its abilities, and it was a fucking hardcore game. That was a fun side scrolling game. Anyways, yeah, check that one out. Maybe not on an emulator, legally or illegally. Yeah.
Do you guys have a favorite console?
You son of a bitch. I was just about to ask that.
I wouldn't be able to answer that as like a non-gamer.
Console stands? Anyone?
I mean, the PS5 is very impressive, but that's kind of the obvious answer at this point.
What about companies as opposed to individual consoles?
How about
That's
your
hard to
least
say.
favorite?
I mean, for the longest time, I really did like Nintendo. So like N64 came out with the PlayStation, and Sega had the Saturn. And those were both CD drives, and the N64 stuck with cartridges, which were more expensive, but I appreciate it because they loaded quicker. So I don't know if you guys remember those original PlayStation load times were
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You know,
and so real quick, that was the same reason with Nintendo when they switched to GameCube.
Yeah.
They switched to disc, but they had those really small discs, and again, they wanted quicker load speed. So sometimes I would pick, if a game came out on multiple consoles, I would still pick GameCube, even though the graphics might be a little less. But I just didn't want to sit there through 5 minutes of load time.
Yeah, the loads would be long.
Do you remember when you used to look at the load screen? Tell me I'm not the only one that did this. Like, you mess with your controller, thinking it was gonna mess with the load time. You're like, faster.
We're the
faster.
people.
Just
We're the
sitting
people
there
that hit the walk button, the crosswalk.
So for me, I'm a PlayStation person. So my video game console journey went from Nintendo to PlayStation.
That's a jump.
That's I've played all the other consoles, because I had friends, that had Super Nintendo, all the Nintendo 64 and all that other stuff. But I always wanted a Sega Genesis. So the year PlayStation was coming out, it was that Christmas. I had it on my Christmas list to say I want a Sega Genesis. Yeah. So my stepdad, the one that I talked about in the previous episode about gargoyles.
Oh yeah, the first episode.
Yeah. So, first episode. So,
which is available out now on Spotify, Stitcher, and Instagram. Instagram. Well done.
So he gets me a PlayStation instead, and I'm sitting there.
Brownie points.
This is not what I wanted. Because I didn't know much, about the PlayStation. So I got Mortal Kombat and another game and both controllers. And at the time, I didn't know how much the console cost, and it was just one of those things because I went from Nintendo to PlayStation, because some of us didn't have it upstairs. No, but anyways,
upstairs, son of a bitch.
So the jump from like graphics for me was
I couldn't imagine,
ridiculous, and I don't know what it is. A fighting game, females always beat the shit out of me. Sonya Blade, I could never beat like any female in any fighting game for some reason. All the guys
too busy staring.
No,
and jerking.
no
those polygons.
Yeah, that. But
well, that explains when you were talking about at the beginning about why you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy. But continue.
But my journey, like I said, from Nintendo,
there you go,
to PlayStation, and once I got a hold of the PlayStation, started playing it, I was like, I don't even want to say Genesis. I don't even care.
I remember when my brother's like, oh my God, dude, the N64, it's like 3D games. And I was like, no way, man, because I just couldn't comprehend that. And then you pop it on, there's Mario to today's standards, was 64-bit, and it's just super polygon. And I'm like, whoa, look at that. You can look around and all three-dimensional space. It's cool. Wow, forget everything else. Look at play Mario Kart 3D, and then I pretended, I was never an upstairs person, but it was my moment to be an upstairs person. And then I would go to a friend's house who was even lesser of an upstairs person, and he's like, you want to play Mario Kart? He's like, yeah, you got the N64. He's like, no, I got the SNES. I'm like, sure.
You must be a downstairs person.
But no, and it was funny to see every subsequent game and console after that, and it would get better and better. And Jesus, look how fucking far we've come. That's fun.
To your story there about that, when actually because my brother and I would save up our allowance and buy a console.
Allowance, no.
So we did chores. we mowed the lawn. We
had a lawn.
Hey, in the words of Hangover, our Doug is white. No, we love you. We love you. Continue.
Anyway, we saved up the money to buy the N64, and I remember showing up to school and telling my friends I got the N64. Very hot stuff. Yeah. Oh, what game you get? We couldn't afford a game yet. Oh. We bought it, and then we had to wait a week or two.
Really?
No.
We had to wait a week or two so we could have the money to actually go buy a game for it. But I just laughed because I felt like such hot shit. I got the new N64.
You couldn't lie about it.
I have a similar
I
story
got a
to that.
controller, and man, it had 3 things.
But the controller was fucking weird. We can agree on that, right?
But it was cool, like because it felt like a gun, like playing games like GoldenEye. Like you had a trigger and stuff. But
Yeah, that's right.
it was still weird. I mean, Nintendo always put out weird stuff.
Which I'm going to get into that. Go, Jermaine.
I do have a similar Doug story about buying the console. When PlayStation 2 came out, they had like a Devil May Cry demo or something like that I saw or played, and immediately I was like, I gotta go get a PlayStation 2. Look, like just like how I'm looking right now, like I got to go get a PlayStation 2. Like that was all.
He is wide-eyed,
all that was on my
spread
mind
on the table,
and and I went and I bought it. You know, bought the controller, memory cards.
Yeah, there you go.
But I didn't have enough for the game. I had to wait until next week when I got paid. This is when I used to work at Disney. I couldn't afford the game, so I had to wait 7 days.
Did you get the controller with the dual shot? Because of the N64, you had to buy the Rumble pack.
Oh yeah, I had to get all that stuff. I had to get all that
Fucking
stuff.
Rumble pack.
But yeah, but I bought that PlayStation without a game. 7 days of just sitting there, just looking at it.
And when you're a kid, it's forever.
Oh yeah,
It's
Forever.
Yeah, you got to be like me and Rudy and get the squints glasses.
Do you guys remember PlayStation's like whole ad campaign at that time? They were like,
Oh yeah, no, I do remember. It was like, if you don't get us, you're poor.
no, the PlayStation was actually, I think, one of the cheaper options because
Really?
their announcement at E3,
Yeah.
I think Sega went up and was going through all the technical advancements of the Sega Saturn, but it was expensive. It was like $500.
What's the Sega Saturn? It was $500.
I want to say it was very high up there.
PlayStation
or maybe
1
it was $400. I don't know.
The
But
PlayStation was $300. I'm gonna look at the Sega
yeah.
Saturn.
So the story is, Sega's up there giving their whole spiel about how it's 32-bit. It's this and that, and $400, right? Mm-hmm. Sony goes up after them, and these are the new kids on the block. Because I don't know if you know the stories. Nintendo actually originally hired Sony to make a CD drive for the SNES.
Uh-huh.
So the PlayStation was originally supposed to be an attachment to the Super Nintendo, and I think one of those still exists in the world.
Yeah, there's one that exists.
But Nintendo didn't want to do it, so Sony said, fine, we'll make our own system. So Sony goes to E3 as like the new kids on the block. Sega just gives their big spiel. Sony guy walks up there and just says $299 and sits back down. Like, and it worked because
Winner,
everyone was
chicken
freaking
dinner.
out about the $400 price tag. So they came out and said, "Oh, we're $100 less." And it's funny because they still kind of do that. They did that, I think, with the PS4 and Xbox 360 or Xbox One or whatever it was at that time. But their whole ad campaign was that like kind of bad boy thing. Like their commercials would be Crash Bandicoot with the megaphone outside the
my
Nintendo and the Sega. You know.
I remember all those PlayStation ads, especially the ones in the magazine. Like they had some like extreme ads back in the day. They used to go hard on the
They wanted to be the adult
ad
system.
campaign.
You have to follow some of like the night only 90s kids will know Instagram pages and stuff like that. You have to post the Crash Bandicoot commercial on Instagram.
Look that up.
Speaking of Crash Bandicoot, the original voice actor just passed
Yeah,
away.
He did just pass away. Man,
Sad times.
have a moment of silence and a Crash Bandicoot sound that'll drop here.
That was a
PlayStation
intense
and PlayStation and Xbox, they were always the games that were like all about performance.
Yeah.
Of this, it looked better, and everything like that. As much as I love Nintendo and the characters that came along with it, I feel that like after the SNES, including the N64, and then every subsequent system, it was always gimmicky. It was always gimmicky.
Oh, for Nintendo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they just didn't want to be part of that race to be more technical advanced, which I mean, unfortunately, I think most gamers wanted.
Well, you were because the reason why I thought of that, like when we were talking about like the Nintendo doesn't have like the big game and stuff like that, and they were never focused on that aspect of like the performance. And immediately I thought, oh shit, yeah, that's right. Like the Switch, as fun as it is, like it's gimmicky.
Yeah, I think it's a gimmick that actually worked though. I think it's
do enjoy it.
amazing.
That's super cool. Yeah.
See, but that's the thing with Nintendo. Since its existence, Nintendo has always been that console that had things that other consoles never had. For my generation, my first Nintendo, you had the zapper gun, you had the power glove, you had the power pad, whatever it was.
Yeah, for the trackpad.
Yeah, the trackpad, where you running the races and you jump up and down. They always had these other elements to the system besides the game that I think that kind of made Nintendo fun.
Oh, they had so much. Sorry to interrupt, but I think back to it, like even on the Game Boy, you had the Pokemon cards that you could like scan.
Oh
the card.
yeah! Oh my god!
There was a Game Boy game that had it was a vampire game, but it had a little sun sensor on it, so you had to actually like go like replenish your
Wasn't there
sunlight or something.
One
like
of the
that.
Game Boy games we had to take a picture of stuff.
Yeah, there was the Game Boy camera.
Yeah, they had the Game Boy camera. They had like a lot of stuff. There's a guy or person, I don't know who it is, but I don't remember the Instagram handle, but he still goes around and takes pictures
on the
with the Game Boy.
Does he get a lot of follows? He's doing it for the gram.
I just think it's a hobby. Like I just think it's one of those things that he just likes doing it. Wasn't there a thing too where you had the Game Boy and you could play your Game Boy games on the TV?
The GameCube had a Game Boy attachment that you could put all your GBA games and Game Boy Advance games in it, but also certain games like Zelda Wind Waker. If you had a GBA, you could link it, and that became like a map that showed you hidden treasure chests.
Oh, that's right.
I think you could only get if you had that Game Boy. I mean, so speaking of Nintendo, I just had to look it up. It's whenever I start talking about Nintendo, I always like to remind people that the company is 133 years old. So
do tell.
Yeah, they start off like playing cards and stuff. So I think it's for them being like kind of gimmicky. It's more, I think, a matter of just constantly wanting to evolve and find new ways to play. And being that old of a company, it's like that's what's worked for them.
Well, and then in that aspect, then I'll allow it. Isaac Carmona, will allow it, and I'll give it to them that they've still been able to stay relevant.
Yeah, I think though the question that any gamer at some point has probably asked is after playing a game like God of War on the PS5, what could Nintendo do? Because like I was saying, Nintendo's gotten really good at making games that work on these lower powered systems. What could the team that made Tears of the Kingdom, what could they do on a PS5 or, an RTX 4090 powered PC? Like, what kind of game could we get? And you see it online. I just saw one the other day where someone took Mario 64 and put it probably in Unreal 5 because everyone's using that engine. Remaking these games in Unreal 5. And it's like, that looks amazing. And I think that's the thing where people, they love the gimmicks of Nintendo, but everyone is still waiting for them to come out and say like, no, we're going to finally make this hardcore system that's going to compete. And I doubt they ever will.
Yeah, I could see that because when my wife had bought the Switch for me, I was like, I have to have Mario Kart, I have to have Super Smash Brothers. My nieces bought a game for me, and it was called Death's Door. You play as this little bird, this little crow, whatever. But the whole point of it, it's like it as cool as the game is. I love you guys, and thank you for the game. We still play it. Is that it isn't like a big. It could have been like on a DS.
Is it
type of game?
Is that a roguelike game?
Is that the maker or a
no,
type of game?
Sorry, it's a type of game. Sorry, I realized I should know that.
For the plebes in the room.
Yeah, we have to explain to people.
There's two types. There's roguelike and roguelite. I don't know if anyone really knows the difference. But
look it up, people. Google exists.
It's based off of there was an original game called Rogue, and the idea was it was a lot of repetition. Like you play a section, you ultimately like your first playthrough, you're going to die like right away, and then you start it up and you play again, and you get a little bit further. Maybe you get a little bit more stronger, and then you die and you start again. Because I think I know the game you're talking about, but I can't remember if it was a roguelite or not. But I could be wrong. But anyway, roguelite games again. Hades is the game I was telling you about.
Right,
Hades is probably the best of those kind of games.
But my point though was that so they got me that game because they're like, oh, my wife's dark and macabre and morbid, so like Death's Door, she'll like that game, and we do. And the problem was like when we went to the game store, Target, and we're looking for Super Smash Brothers. As we're waiting for the guy, I'm looking at all the other game titles, and like none of them caught my fancy. You know, just like some game that could have been on the DS, or just some like, you know, buffer game. It just wasn't like a big title.
What I use Nintendo mainly for is like all like the Mario parties and all those things, like, you know, like when Mario you get together, you know, like the Smash Brothers. Like I never really played like their campaign games. Like it's always been more of a party thing, or get your friends together. That's what I use.
Although the Switch's Smash Brothers, I've been playing like its campaign. That's pretty fun. It's called like the Spirit board or something.
The Switch is interesting to me because I play a lot of like indie games, a lot of retro 2D style, and I'm always torn when I go to buy one if I want to get it on like the PlayStation because it's quicker. The PlayStation trophies are kind of fun to get, or get it on the Switch where it's going to be slower, graphically maybe not there, but it's portable.
That is
like, that's what makes it. It's such a hard decision, and so a lot of my like when I get a retro like JRPG kind of game, I'll usually get it on the Switch because then that's something I could play pretty easily while I travel or something like that.
I mean, yeah, that's the other thing too. I love as far as gimmick, it was a gimmick that worked, like the portability of it. Although I still can't get over like if we're, you know, portability and we're both, my wife and I are like, let's take it to our families, and if we're bored, we'll set it up and, you know, play Smash Brothers, and we're using the tiny, like we're you know, my wife is 5'10", I'm 5'11", like we're using these tiny little controllers.
Yeah,
still can't get over it, but it's still fun. We manage.
Do you guys have a favorite video game of all time?
That is a hard.
Oh, I have mine.
That is a loaded question.
Yeah, man.
Oh no, I got
wrong with
what
you?
you got? What you got, Trey?
Mine is the first Metal Gear Solid for PlayStation.
That's a good pull.
Still to this day, I think it, for me anyways, it's gameplay was phenomenal.
Yep.
Story was phenomenal.
Yep.
The little things, well, not even the cutscenes, but yes, the cutscenes. Like for me, the reason why Metal Gear is my favorite video game franchise of all time, it's the story, the cutscenes, the action, and all that. And I love all the characters, but I will never forget that first Metal Gear. It was all about the boss battles. Like they just did something different at the time. Like I would never forget fighting Psycho Mantis, having to figure out how to beat this boss, and as you're playing him or fighting him, he's reading all your moves, so he knows what you're gonna do, and you're sitting there, and on top of that, he's talking trash to you like the whole time. So because the game or the PlayStation had a memory card, if you played any Konami games, when he gets to the line or whatever he says, you know, like, oh, I can read your mind, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, he's like, oh, I can see you played Castlevania. And I'm sitting there playing the game like, what the fuck? How do you know? You don't even know me like that, bro.
Only Santa, so at the time, he's like, only Santa Claus knows me like
right?
that.
But it's just one of those things, like, I just felt that, like, that moment in that game to me was everything. And then having to figure out how to beat him at the time, you know, there was no place that you can necessarily go to like look.
You'd have to buy the catalog for walkthroughs.
Things up like, you had to get all that stuff, but you had to switch your controller port from 1 to 2.
Oh, I remember that.
And that's how you had to beat him because
so
he no longer can read your moves. And it's just one of those things that moment for me, like I was in awe, and it was just one of those things where I need more of this.
Yeah.
I want that. It was creative, interesting, but just to sit there and have this villain talk trash, read your memory card, and then you have to figure out that you had to switch your
like made it more immersive.
Yeah, like it was just one of those things. I've never seen that before. I was shocked, and I was
been
like,
chasing the dragon ever
how
since.
does this guy know me like that? But for me, that's my favorite video game of all time. It's still
I got no competition.
playable.
That's good.
Yeah. Certainly not as meta as switching controllers, but the Guardians of the Galaxy game, if you haven't played that, I really recommend it. Love those characters, but they did a good job of making you figure out things by paying attention to like the verbal cues. And there was a few moments in that game where like I was so sure I had to do a certain thing, and then I finally like stopped and was kind of listening to the characters. It's like, oh. Like, but some of it was kind of easy to miss because it seemed so obvious you should maybe go like one direction or whatever. But then and they're not just yelling, "Hey, turn around, idiot!" I'm not that dumb, but that it is fun to your point. Like when you have to actually kind of pay attention to what's happening and then piece it together and figure it out. Because I do feel like a lot of games these days, God of War, right? The latest God of War was where you didn't even have a chance to solve the puzzle before Atreus is pointing something out like, hey, maybe if you shoot that with an arrow, the thing will swing down and then hit that and will cause a train reaction. It's like, oh, okay, I guess I don't need to play the game. I'm like, all right, you want to just do this for me, Atreus?
It was like Nicolas Cage, I'll take pleasure in gutting you, boy. Like, shut up.
Rudy, favorite game?
Like I remember being a big fan of all the Nintendo games up until I bought my first PlayStation, and I was like, Nintendo, I don't want to play with you anymore. And like, the very first two games that I bought for the PlayStation were Final Fantasy VII and Resident Evil 2.
Final Fantasy VII.
Final Fantasy VII is really like way up there, like one of my favorite games of all time.
Oh no, I see you.
But that being said, Resident Evil 2, the first time I played that game, I fucking hated it. I put it in. The controls were all like, the tank controls. Like,
was that Raccoon City?
Yeah. And like I played like the first 10 minutes. I was like, get out of here. Like I took the disc out and I threw it, and I put in Final Fantasy VII and I played that. I loved it. And
Wait,
then,
did you play Resident Evil 1 at the time?
No, I hadn't played that one yet.
Gotcha.
But I went back to it. I'm like, I spent all this money. Like back then, that was a lot of money for me. I'm like, spend all this money. Let me give it another try. And I got used to the controls, and holy shit, that the world that opened up right after that, like it's Final Fantasy VII, Resident Evil 2. Those are like neck and neck for like my favorite games of all time.
Real quick, you brought up how that was a lot of money for you back then. The thing is, like, these games cost the same today as they did now. Actually, N64 games were $70.
Tell me, old man, how inflation works.
Oh no, but I remember.
But this is what I'm saying.
You're right. Yeah.
Like people today
Because I
complain
remember
about like
Nintendo
these,
games were.
Yeah, N64 were some were $70. And
Then?
yeah,
Oh yeah, they were expensive.
because they were cartridges. They weren't CDs.
Were they really?
Yeah, and then PlayStation
Even
games were like 40,
VHS, I know I'm off
50,
topic, but VHS was
60.
the Dragon Ball Z, Rudy. Dragon Ball Z VHS tapes. Remember how much those cost? But
Well, my point is like people today will talk about how expensive games are, and it's like first like they're almost the same as what they've always been, and they cost these companies 10 times, 100 times to make. Now, granted, there's more gamers,
You're right.
and most games aren't even physically released anymore; it's digital. But
no, go ahead.
I still just think it's like with inflation in mind, it's like games are cheap.
Oh
now.
my God. Yeah, they were $75.99 back in the day, which is the equivalent of about $130 at 2021. Yeah. Holy
but
shit.
that's why.
Yeah.
But that's why
I'm complaining about games. Games are $60 today.
A lot of games are free today, and that's
Oh yeah, you
crazy.
got a lot of but that's
Free to
why
play,
that
they get you
that,
the microtransactions.
Oh, that's, yeah.
that one
Getcha.
Christmas when I got the PlayStation, I was shocked because I got the PlayStation plus the controller and I think plus 2 games and a memory card. So I was like, they spent
With a retail value of.
all the money.
What's crazy is those back in the day.
Thanks, Bob.
I mean, I think even all the way up to the PlayStation 4, all the companies would take such a loss. Like Sony selling the PlayStation for
God
$300,
damn.
they were taking a loss. But
yeah, they were taking a
but
hit.
they're turning around and you're buying $60 games from them, and they'd make up for it. I think Bill Gates wanted to release the Xbox for free, but I think he was legally like stopped because that'd be like monopoly. But he was just going to take the full loss, knowing that people were going to buy the subscriptions and stuff like that. I think on that. Don't quote me. Don't quote me on anything. I pull stuff.
As we said in the last episode, we're not opinion based, but we are right.
I mean, we're a good place
Just
to
Google
start.
people.
Like Google stuff we say. To
Yeah,
confirm
yeah.
it.
I don't think we've ever said this, but like we're not for the uber nerds. We have to explain the shit out of everything.
Yeah.
But we're like for the above the casual.
We're just
people.
that casual conversation.
We're not we're not filthy casuals, but we're still kind of casual. You know?
So
I mean, I'll keep my pants on, kind of casual. You know,
Oh, you have your pants on?
me.
Hold on.
Oh, it's hitting my leg.
we don't enforce a dress code here, so
We don't.
Did you say what yours
favorite
was?
game? No, it's really hard for me to say. Final Fantasy VII was probably the first game that I fully beat. Not just the last story. I went back and beat the Ruby weapon, like all three of the weapons. I think the Ruby weapon was one that I had to go on like old school gamefaqs.com or something like that.
I remember that website.
Yeah. And the Ruby weapon, like to beat it, you had to like literally kill your other two players. Like you equip Cloud with the Phoenix and some other things. You purposely killed the other two because as long as like everyone was alive, the Ruby weapon would cast a thing that would randomly kill two people, and you couldn't lose Cloud. Like everything rested on like or it didn't have to be Cloud, but you had to keep one character super strong, so you purposely killed the other two, so then he wouldn't cast the random killing thing. It was a crazy fight that took forever, and you'd have to cast Knights of the Round like 4 times in a row, and which was the longest animation ever. So you'd spend half the fight just watching the Knights of the Round summon over and over and over. But so Final Fantasy VII is certainly up there for me. But then I've also played a lot of MMOs like EverQuest Online Adventures, which was a PlayStation 2.
Explain to me what an MMO is. I had to look it up because you kept saying it the past couple episodes.
sorry.
I'm like, yeah, MMO, and I had to Google it.
Massively multiplayer online game. So EverQuest is probably, it's not the first, but it's probably the first well-known one.
Common. I was going to say, wouldn't World of Warcraft be a common one?
World of Warcraft is like the huge one that everyone knows. So it's a massive game where you're playing with
Dumb it down for me. Act like you're speaking to me.
you're playing with a lot of people in this shared world. And so like I played EverQuest on the PlayStation 2 with like my group of real friends and got really into that. I did play World of Warcraft back in vanilla and I stopped and I got back into it. But there was a game called Warhammer Online based off the Warhammer fantasy franchise. And that was the first time and the only time I played any of these kind of games with a guild. I joined a random guild, and we were, I think, the most powerful guild on that server. And in that game, you could take over territory. Like most of the times, we'd go to bed owning a lot of it, and just playing with people from around the world and getting to know everyone. They eventually promoted me to like a general. And that first night that I was general, there was a massive battle, and they're like, "All right, Doug," or I think my character's name was Cyclone. I was a white lion, which is a really cool class. It was like an elf with a big white lion as my pet. And there wasn't a lot of people that played the class on the server because it was a little bit harder class to play. So me and God, I used to remember the other good player's name. There was another white lion player and we were both in the same guild, and it was a powerful class. So that like they let me in charge, and I was making like these tactical decisions like, okay, the majority of the guild is going to go defend this keep. Me and I picked like 4 other players that I knew were really good are going to do this like flank attack. It didn't work, but everyone had a blast because like the main group did the defense. Our flank attack worked because the enemy had more guys there than I thought they would. But we still almost got it, and we're just like, that was amazing. That would have worked, blah, blah, blah. But so to answer your question, I don't know what my favorite game is. Cyberpunk 2077.
10 minutes later, he doesn't know.
Cyberpunk 2077. I just, I played through it. I instantly just wanted to play through it again.
I'm glad you said that because like a later game, right? Because I was if I were to choose if I'm not going to choose a favorite game, I can't because it's all nostalgia. Mine's is all nostalgia based. Like you mentioned, Metal Gear Solid, and it's other than the gameplay itself. Like for me, it's also nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned a later game. Like I don't game, so I can't really say. But
See, but if I did say a later game, or a newer game, I feel
because I yearn for simpler times.
like also Metal Gear. Also for me, it's the soundtrack.
Okay,
I love all the.
I'm pointing at Jermaine. I'll say his
music.
answer. What he says, double for me. Me too. Same.
But if it's a newer game, I love God of War. I love Devil May Cry. Like those are my type of games, Metal Gear. But I gotta go with Last of Us, man. I love the soundtrack, but I love the gameplay, especially the first one. like I love that game so much that when the second one came out, it affected me heavily, still to this day. And that person we know is still in limbo, and I go back to her every so often.
I mean, that game was so powerful story wise. Is they made a fucking
it
TV
just
show
gets
off of
you.
it,
It just
starring Space Daddy.
Space Zaddy. Space.
He doesn't
Daddy.
know. Mm-mm. He
Oh, no,
doesn't
he
like
doesn't like the
Zaddy.
Zaddy,
No,
but-
Jermaine.
but he's,
fucking get your shit right. It's not like Zaddy, okay? It's Daddy, because Zaddy implies old. Go ahead. I thought you were gonna hit
No,
something.
no. Just looking at my options.
He was looking to get scolded already.
Yeah,
But
Oh, go ahead.
But yes, newer game wise, definitely has to be Last of Us. I love like I said, the story, the gameplay, the music, all the like everything you had to go through in that game. I feel like I felt it all, and you just fall in love with the characters
'Cause I would
as the
say-
game goes on.
I would say that game is a good combo of. I mean, every game it's got to be a good combo of storyline, gameplay.
yeah.
What else am I missing?
Well, it's
Well, you said gameplay. I was going to say mechanics. but
Yeah, to get more
but
specific.
yeah, the
about it,
gameplay,
yeah.
the mechanics, but it's also the
Was there an online aspect to that?
No.
No.
no
Of what?
The Last of Us?
Yes.
Oh, there was
was
multiplayer,
online?
wasn't there?
They did have a very small multiplayer
Oh,
mode.
I misheard. I thought you said online.
Yeah, that's how you play with other people.
No. Like no.
Does it feel like to be done, Jermaine? Oh, finally.
What the fuck is the internet?
No, like
is off of me.
I thought like it was like
Back in my day, you'd stick a jack into the wall.
do you remember
You'd have to hear the.
oh no, go ahead, give it to me. No, give it to me. But you know how they had
downstairs person.
what was it? The other game that they had because it was The Last of Us. Then they had like a comic, and they had
I don't know.
What is that thing?
Hey, Google.
It was based off the comic book, but anyways, I thought you were referring to something else. Anyways,
Just
but
on it. Speaking of online as well, when video games then went online, like that opened up a fucking a massive door. It just opened up the whole world. Now I didn't get it into
no
a
more
lot.
screen watching.
I think that's exactly it too. Like, or you ever do like the Halo? Like, was it LAN party? Connect all your shit together.
I love
Yes.
the LAN party.
Oh my god!
But with the online, I probably played like Call of Duty or Battlefield, and that was probably like the extent of it. But we're talking about like open up the whole world. It just, man, I'd be up to like fucking 3 a.m. Just
Everybody was up.
Yeah, but I also sometimes I feel for
Max Reaper, and that was like the handle.
I feel for like the younger generations because I mean I know couch multiplayer still exists, but I do, like I said earlier, after high school, almost every day my friends would come over and we'd play GoldenEye
Yeah.
and stuff. And
Oh, yeah, we was in the
I think
garage.
about that like if this same group
You had
of
a garage?
friends, if my same group of friends was in high school today, it wouldn't be all going to one person's house. It'd be like, I'll go home, I'll catch you online. Like we'd all just be going home and getting online to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, maybe we would bring like LAN party and stuff over. Like speaking of EverQuest Online Adventures, at that point, again, upstairs, we had
Zoning it now.
Yeah, because we bought 2 extra PS2s. So we had 3 PlayStation 2s.
Whoa.
So we could all play EverQuest and a buddy could play EverQuest. And we also dual boxed. We'd use each other's accounts because that was a game you paid for monthly. We would
Upstairs
use each
people
other's
money.
accounts to
I didn't
play.
have a door growing up. Motherfuckers had upstairs and downstairs.
We all had to share the same washcloth.
Fucking lawns.
At that point, that was
Lawns
late.
and garages.
That was
and-
late PlayStation 2. We had like jobs and we're buying it with our own money that we earned.
Real quick, because everyone else got to say an old game and a newer game, Destiny.
Oh,
and Destiny
yeah,
2 for
Destiny.
me. Of this generation,
Destiny, it's all-
love it.
You guys are gonna hate me and get
love it.
your finger ready for the shame button.
Fuck no. Where's my shame hammer?
When my brother, hey brother, he bought us the PS4, the Destiny edition, and I played like 20 minutes of it. I was like, man, I'm not into it. Sorry, brother.
Yeah, I knew you were going to tell the story. I hate you.
Yeah, I never played it.
Destiny.
The only thing about Destiny for me is
No!
I like the game. Oh no, you will sit there and you will listen. You will take this.
Mute your own mic, Rudy.
But
Sorry.
I like Destiny, but if it was a little bit like Call of Duty, where if I didn't play it
That's what I was expecting.
and I could just come back
Yeah, that's what I was expecting.
and be fine on the same level with everybody, then like it was a different
Okay,
animal for me.
As
It
far
was
as like the
just a different
history
animal.
of video games, was Destiny like the start of like it was like a step away from like Call of Duty, where you play a campaign, you play a story.
I think it kind of created that new genre of, it's not quite an MMO, but it was online living world.
Yeah. It just didn't catch my fancy, is what it was.
Well, and then the thing with Destiny is like, as time went on, just like all the other MMOs, just like, man, I slurred that one hard. Just like all the MMOs, like World of Warcraft right now, you hop into that game as a new player, like you have no idea what to do. And so Destiny, I think just as time went on, it got harder and harder for new players to get on.
And there's like no tutorial. Remember, you would have like to play tutorials when you start a game, and it'd be like, here's how to shoot, here's how to do this, and,
Yeah.
and then as games advance, it's like, here's how to do this whole combo of shit.
Blizzard on WoW, World of Warcraft, eventually,
Thank you for explaining that.
recently, a couple expansions ago, like introduced a whole new starting island. So if you created a new character, you could choose to start old school, where like a dwarf would start at the dwarf city at Gnome and blah, blah, blah. Or you can start at this new island where they have very much a tutorial walkthrough of how to use your abilities and
Yeah.
what to expect. It's one of those things that I do look at something Destiny now and think like they probably should have some sort of full on beginner experience. Like, I don't know, it's like a hologram or something, like, because everything in that world's supposed to be like, fit into the actual
Yeah.
universe. It's like, it's not a game, it's a living world.
Well, even games as simple as like Super Smash Brothers, I play with my nephew every now and again. Hey, buddy. I don't know if you listen or not, but he'll like, hold on, I've never played this character, so I gotta pause it and learn the moves. I'm like, bud, it's 2 hit buttons and then a direction. Just figure it out. No, but they got social stuff. We're gonna figure it out. I'm like, dude, come on. I'm not gonna sit here waiting for you to figure it out. Kick your ass.
I think
In the game, I don't hit children.
I think one of the greatest things
Allegedly.
about video games, especially now, is there's so many different types and there's so much to it. We were talking about The Last of Us. When that series, the TV series was out on HBO, so many people I knew were coming to me. It's like, is that how the game is like? I said, pretty much almost shot for shot. That's what the game is like.
Oh, I saw that side by side YouTube video where I was
Yeah.
like, "Fuck, that's cool." Again, and I love when they when any kind of adaptation like really respects the source material, because that inspiration is there, even if it is shot for shot.
Well, I think just it introduced people to the idea that these video games can be cinematic and there can be characters that you care about. Because a lot of people, I think, when they think of video games, it is just, oh, you're just shooting each other, right? Or it's GTA and you're getting a hooker and then killing her, right?
You
It's
forget that they're telling the story.
Yeah, there's so much to them all, and like I said earlier, I play like the smaller indie games, and like once you get into those, there are some beautiful games that I think even gamers, even people that play games all the time, I think are doing themselves a disservice by not just checking out some of them. And like quick shout outs, like the Life is Strange series is a beautiful series, again, with characters and stuff like that. I know, like, to a hardcore gamer, it's going to seem boring. So for the most part, you're just moving around and interacting with things and making decisions. But those decisions, affect the outcome. And if you get into it, and then there was another game that came out a few years ago, What Remains of Edith Finch. And that game was very simple mechanics wise, but story wise, like, to give it away, you're going back to an old family house, and then each level was kind of a different mechanic, but basically you were playing out how each family member died, and you didn't realize that right at first. But again,
It was
it's
like a whodunit game.
no, not even a whodunit.
Oh.
It was just you were there to remember like the rest of the family by living out their last moments in this kind of artistic way. Like, I don't know, I'm just going to spoil it. Like, one of the babies drowned. So like that level was like this swimming level. And at first you thought you were kind of just swimming, but then like you realized it was like bathtub stuff was slowly getting in, and then like the screen goes white, and then you come back out of it in your house. It's
Depressed now.
but it's still just, it's such an artistic thing. And we're talking about all these great shooters and adventures, slasher games and stuff like that. I think it's important to point out that these video games can also tell, or can be artistic and can tell deeper stories than just action hero-y stuff.
Like Max Payne. Max Payne was like, it was pretty deep and as depressing as the one that you just explained right now. And maybe not as like depressing as the baby drone. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
But
and you played through it out as a hallucination.
Has anyone played Max Payne
Yeah.
at all?
I played
The
it.
nightmare scene with the fucking baby crying. You have to really figure it out. I was stuck in that thing forever with the baby crying and crying and crying and crying. God damn it. And then they made it into a movie. You know what? And to that,
We never got to it.
no. Not even like getting. That's right at the start of it. Everything we said we were going to talk about.
Maybe that could be a next episode.
Oh, that'll be its own episode for sure. And the conversation about games is, we just scratched the surface of what we all experience. I'm sure there's more we could talk about individually
absolutely.
about
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
a whole bucket full of games. So
Fuck it. We called an audible. And it's just how the show is going to flow. You know what I mean? We don't want to make it into any kind of structured shit. It's just joining the conversation. These are what conversations are. Let's save that for the next episode if that's cool. Yeah, the whole video game to movie.
don't pigeonhole me into episodes. We'll save it for a future episode.
Well,
Well, maybe something cool will happen next week.
Don't you
We'll
put this
have
on
to-
me, Ricky Bobby.
We'll talk about something else. I'm just saying. Let's keep on.
Okay.
Because
So-
actually, right before we record next week is PlayStation's next showcase. So who knows what will be announced?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
So what I will say is we will circle back and actually talk about video game adaptations. Is that what you call it? Video game adaptations, movies that were based off of video games or shows that were based off video games.
Adaptations, not adaptions.
I didn't say adaptions.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
I will play this back for you later.
You know what I did say on the last episode? Every time I said Kryptonian, I kept saying Corptonian. I heard myself. That was weird. Corptonian, but
Corptonian.
adaptations. We're going to circle back to it. Something new might pop up for next week, but we do want to circle back. But let's put a pin in it for right now, guys. Thank you again for listening to another episode of The Hype Attack. Again, check us out on Instagram and TikTok at The Hype Attack. If there's anything that we've missed, if there's anything you want us to talk about, hit us up in the DM, hit us up in the comment section. Jermaine's going to post the commercial Crash Bandicoot, right? Aren't you, Jermaine?
Yes, I will.
And again, thank you guys. Thank you for listening, and hit subscribe, share us if you like what we're doing. Dude, just let us know that you like
Smash
it.
that like button.
Smash the like button.
And
Doug,
give us good reviews.
yeah.
Please.
I mean, if
Please,
you like
okay,
it,
I mean, don't lie,
you know?
but please.
No, fuck you if you like it.
Whoever went on the Apple version of the podcast and left a 1-star rating, I will find you.
Really?
Yes.
Oh no, it's all good. I appreciate those 1 stars because it lets me know that I'm trying.
You know what I do appreciate? I appreciate everyone that's actually like been reaching out to me and letting us know what they like and don't like. I like the constructive criticism. Keep it going because it's only going to make us better. We really give a shit about this show. We care about everyone. We care about each other because that is what being a nerd is all about.
Yeah.
As Doug says,
Yeah,
and he will say,
Keep the conversation going.
keep that conversation
Keep it going, please.
Well, yeah, man. So, till next week, guys, same hype time, same hype channel.
Hype attack.